This is a compact square for the afghan. It consists of 3 rows. I'm starting off with a magic circle, yarn to the front, long enough to work away later, so don't make it too short. Wrap the yarn once around the first finger, holding it here with the other fingers, slip the hook underneath both loops. Then, so you slip through both, you're coming back, you're fetching the yarn, you're pulling it through, giving it a twist as you pull it through. It's now created a twist. Go and fetch the yarn again, pull it through, and you have a magic circle with a slip knot. For the square, I'll be working in clusters of 3. To start off the row after the slip knot, for the first row, I chain 2. That is now going to count as the first double crochet US terms of the cluster. So I will need to make 2 more double crochets so that I have a cluster of 3. This chain 2 counts as a double crochet. The first row is going to have 4 of these clusters, so for each corner I chain 1. It is a compact square. The only place that I chain when making a row is when I'm stepping up and when I am making a corner. I'm back at the next corner, chain 1, 3 more double crochets, chain 1, 3 more double crochets. This is my 4th cluster, and I chain 1. I untwist the yarn, 1, 2, 3, 4, pull it closed to the front, give it a little movement to the back. I like to have mine very, very closed, so I'm going to keep on pulling until I'm happy with it. It's lovely. So I have ended on a chain 1 because that is the corner. I'm going to slip stitch into the top V created by that first section of chains. It is a slip stitch, so I've pulled it out, but I'm going to go all the way through, and I've created a slip stitch. Now the row is closed. Rechecking that there's 4 clusters. Yes. I change it how I do it, but in this particular afghan, this is how I'm doing it. Sometimes I turn and I work in there, but in this particular one, I'm literally going back into that workspace, which I will call the gap, the workspace, pulling through a yarn, bit of yarn, and basically it's like a single crochet. So as you can see, it's actually a step up, and I chain 1. Now that is my first stitch. I am not working from the same side for each row. I turn it for every row. So now I am already in that gap, and so the corner will continue. I need to finish this cluster of 3, so I've made 2 more double crochets. My first cluster is now finished. I chain 1 for the corner, and into that same workspace I'm going to make another 3. For the second group, I add a little bit more tension so that it doesn't gap. The tension is in this finger, so it doesn't gape, so those first stitches are nice and tight in there. I'm now jumping over that cluster of 3 into the next workspace. I'll be making another corner, which is 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet. That is the standard corner. 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, and extra tension on the second cluster of 3 double crochet. Jumping over 3 double crochets from the previous row, finding my workspace, my gap. 1, 2, 3. I know it looks really messy the way I'm crocheting, but relax in my chair watching TV. It goes much more smoothly, and also I don't think about it. This is like trying to explain how to drive. One doesn't really think about what one's feet are doing and one's hands are doing until one has to explain it to somebody else. So there we go. This is the next and last corner. 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double crochet, and this is the end of round 2. You can check your work. We are going to slip stitch to that top V. You can see if you want to pull it away, just find it. See that top V there? It's on the right hand side of the first officially made double crochet, because this is a step up chain 1. Now when you've come to the end of this row, you do not chain 1. You only did that on the first row because it was a corner. This is not a corner, this is a side. There's no chains on the side. Pull it through and continue pulling it through. Slip stitch. Once again, go back into that workspace, fetch the yarn, and fetch the yarn again. Pull through both loops to make a single crochet, chain 1, and turn. We are now on the side. We are no longer in the corners. We are in a space. We are going to continue with our clusters of 3. As we have already made the first stitch, the first double crochet, even though it is not an official one, it is actually a step up. We're going to be making 2 more. Do not chain 1 here. This is a side. In the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochet, with a bit of tension on that second cluster of 3 double crochets so that they do not gape. Coming to the side, do not chain 1 when you are working on the sides. I know it's repetitive, but it should sink in if I keep saying do not chain 1 on the sides. This is a compact granny square, working on the reverse side for each row. Corner, now we chain 1 and the second cluster with a bit of added tension to keep those stitches nice and tight. Side, there's no chain 1 between the clusters on the side. Come to the corner, 3 double crochets, chain 1, 3 double crochets with a bit of extra tension, side, no chain 1 between the side clusters, come into the final corner. It's a complete corner, just 3 double crochets, chain 1 up, gaping chain, 3 double crochets with a bit of tension, and we have finished this particular square. I do not slip stitch there. Why? Because later on I need my beautiful V's to sew them together. I cut the yarn while it is still on my finger. I cut it here to make sure that I've got lots to work with. And with my hook, I pull the yarn out. I find a needle. I like sharp ones. It's called a chenille. That's a darning, soft. It's got a blunt end. This is a chenille. I'll be working my yarn tails away immediately. I start with the center one. Make sure that it's right. Thread. And what I do is I untwist the plies, the fibers, and making sure that I know which side it came out of. You see it came out there. So if this is a clock, you've got 12, 6, 9, and 3 o'clock. We're working in the direction of the hands of a clock, which is called clockwise. I'm going to go literally underneath the first row of fibers. My finger at the back is just reminding me. If I go all the way through, it will poke my finger. And each time give it a untwist. You can see there's a little twist happening, but I just keep on untwisting the fibers. And I'm literally going to be working around the clock a number of times. This is on the back. You can see it's the back. I don't do it on the front. If it's in the front, I feed it through. It's on the back. If you're feeding it through from the front, be very careful that you're not going in the wrong direction when you are sewing it in. Otherwise, you'll be undoing your square. The magic circle will come undone. Now, by untwisting the fibers each time and working as close as possible, I don't work right there, but I'm working definitely in the first row. And by using a sharp pointed needle, which is breaking through all those fibers. Unlike a darning needle which finds its way between the stitches, this is literally cutting through, splicing through all the stitches and all the fibers. And what it does is it gives it a tight grip. The rule of going backwards, just go back. The ideal rule is a rule of 3, but I've gone around a few times and I'm running out of thread. But my thread's always the same length. I go back once. I said the ideal is you actually go in 3 different directions and your fiber will be very stuck. But if you see, look, I tug on that, there's no give to it. Flip the work over. That is my front. Once again. Now to start off with, I'm going to be using the back, which is blunt. And I'm looking for that first V. That is where, if I'd been continuing my rows, I would have made my slip stitch. But instead, what I'm now doing is completing. I want it to look exactly like that. All the V's lined up beautifully. So what I'm doing is with my blunt end, just to show you nicely, I'm going through that V where I normally would have made the beginning of my next row. I'm pulling it through. See, it's there. And then you turn the work over, you can see there's 2 sections to the stitch. If you look at the back of the row, there's always the V on top and there's like a little bubble underneath. That's the back side of your work. I go through both. Pull it, and now I have my little V. Don't make it too tight because you need to come back and work through it later on. I want it to match in size. Now when I sew in this yarn, do not sew it right underneath this V, because what's going to happen is you won't be able to work later on the blocks together. You need to give it some breathing space. So you see how far down I've come by going through both. I respect that distance. I jump to the other side and I'm nice and far down. Hold your finger. Remember, you don't want to pull it tight. You want to give it breathing space. Now I untwist all the fibers. You can go any direction you want. I like to go back. Don't pull it too tight, otherwise it's going to distort this cluster. I'm working down. I'm twisting it a bit. You can cut this guy away. Depends how you feel. I'll cut him away just to make it easier for you to see what's going on. I'll leave a little tiny bit. Don't worry, when you wash it, that will just blend in. Going down, trying to follow the direction of the stitches here. See there? So I'm not making it obvious. I'm trying to get it to blend in. Okay. First I have to work in little pieces. Hold tight when you're pulling it through so it does not distort all the work up here. There we go. Really, you can't see where it's come and where it's gone. And you can go around the clock a little bit if you want to, either direction. But I'm going to go, that's where I like to go. I like to go into what I call my worms. The worms are this is a big worm, it's a corner. That's a small worm from the side. I like to go into a big worm. See, I'm running out of fiber already. Go underneath the first section of the worm. And I come out under the second section of the worm. Catching that stitch there. You want this afghan or the square, whatever it's going to be, to last for a very, very long time. And unfortunately, so often work does unravel because the ends aren't worked in properly. And just to show you, this is a box.